Okay, this is to demonstrate the 2200 stair router. This machine has two single-phase Porta-Cable 7519 3 1/4 horsepower routers, 27,000 RPM. This machine is going to require 110 volt with a neutral at 50 amp to run this minimum. Air consumption is somewhere around 8 to 12 CFM. The way this machine is designed, it has a tread scale on the left and a riser scale on the right, and the scale in the middle is for setting the dimension between your tread rise combinations, sometimes referred to as the run or the hypotenuse of a right angle triangle. On the side here is how you turn on and off your no riser feature. This will typically always be in the on position. As you look at it now, this is in the on position. On the top you have a few gauges. The first gauge is your pressure for your tread. Second gauge is your pressure for your riser. And the top one is the combination pressure to do the oil pressure of both units. Basically the way this unit works is it goes through the template. As it travels through the template, it makes a number of switches. These switches shuttle the valves, which change the direction as it travels through the template. Once the machine is running, it's pretty easy to figure out which way it's running, which way it changes after it triggers one of the switches. In the front here is your nose switch. This one sends the router back down into the bottom of the tread, or the back of the tread if you're going up the staircase. We've gone ahead and put in some labels here to make it a little bit easier to change between the different types of nose spacings. Underneath is another fixture, and this fixture here, if you adjust this bolt right here, you can move this back and forth to change the thickness of the tread material. On the side here, the controls are pretty simple. That's your key on, that gives you power. At that point you can turn on and off the routers. This is your start cycle. These here are a little more involved. The top one is your template air. You turn this off whenever making an adjustment to your tread and rise. And the bottom one is for doing Autofeed. Autofeed is if you want to run a tread rise combination and the machine automatically does another one and another one, until you get the number of tread rises that you want, and then you turn it off. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to make one more adjustment here. This sensor here underneath here is how the machine knows that it still has material. So if you left your auto feed on and you run out of wood, once this flipper pops up, the machine will then run one more unit and then shut off. So that way it can be run unmanned. And in the front here is how you set up your run or your hypotenuse, and that will always match what this scale reads on this surface here. So we're going to go ahead and set this up. We're going to do a 10-inch tread and a 7.5-inch riser. We're going to show you how to make that adjustment. Okay. We put the wood in far enough to where it's going to grab on both clamps. The reason why we're doing that is, as you can see, we don't have conveyor set up to support the back of the board. When you have conveyor set up, it can be placed in there without being pushed in quite that far. Okay, so what he's done is he's loosened up the two red handles. He has the template air off. He's going to line up the edge of the scale to number 10. Then he's going to turn the wheel, and that's going to change the angle of the template until he gets to 7.5. But you do have to go back and forth to confirm that the edge of your scale is still at 10. So there's quite a bit of going back and forth until you get both dimensions perfect. So here he is on 10, and on the side here he's on 7.5, and as you can see, the hypotenuse scale, the 12.5 lines up with the 7.5. We use this combination because it gives some nice clean cut numbers so you can see them well. And you can also, if you don't like using the edge of the scale, you can burn an inch and put the 1 up against the 10, and then the scale on the edge against the riser like you'd want to. You just have to take in account when you set your hypotenuse that it's not 13.5, it's 12.5. Okay, so now the hypotenuse is set, and he's going to turn the template air on. You heard it air up. We're going to go ahead and do an auto feed. So he's going to turn the auto feed on. He's going to turn the key switch on, turn the router on, and then after that he's going to turn on the start sequence. Okay, so now we're going to measure the tread and the rise and see what kind of dimensions we got. Grab my silver tape measure right on top there. Is it there? No? It's second to bottom drawer. Should be in there. Not the tape measure, but the scales. Okay, so we're going to measure the middle one. So there's your 7.5, and then I'm going to do the tread. It's kind of hard to see that one. And there's your 10, and then the repeat, the run, should be 12.5. It's 12.5. Okay, that's the conclusion of this video. We're going to make one more to show how to do the no riser fixture.